He's the deal lawyer, and he's the certified coach. Find out what happens when these two professionals talk about universal questions and topics that require insightful answers. This week, the guys meet to talk about. This episode starts now.
Being a lawyer in large law firms and watching sort of sometimes the environment is extremely competitive,
yes.
And at times there's tension. The economy goes up and down, and so then lawyers. This includes any other business. Sometimes there need to be cuts made, or an area is hot and they need to hire it, ramp up, and then people are trying to get hours and do all those kinds of things, be productive. So it gets very when and so then sometimes you have tension, you have personalities, all those kinds of things, and so it's hard. You got to manage those kinds of things. But then on the other side, when you have your own firm and you're an owner of a firm, it becomes even more of an issue of really trying to nurture the culture and the environment, make it an environment where people feel comfortable.
Yes.
Because it is truly an investment to have good lawyers and staff to be part of the group, because all of it kind of helps to, it's all part of the whole. And when someone leaves who's well trained or whatever it may be, or someone leaves upset and everything, it has a major impact.
It definitely does.
It does. And so it's extremely important to try to understand and try to manage the environment and make it one that's conducive to productivity, and also for people to enjoy themselves, because people spend a lot of time in these offices. A lot of time. You know?
That's exactly right. I mean, you're spending anywhere from 40 to 65 hours a week, and if you're doing that with people who you don't like or don't care for because of their nature of being someone who thinks that in order to be a winner you have to be super aggressive, and you have to be one of those people who can just talk roughly to people because, hey, I'm successful, I don't have to be nice. I'm rich, that idea. I don't have to be nice. I'm rich, or I'm a baller. I'm making money, so I don't have to be nice.
Yeah.
But then when these people come down from that high, what they've done is they've left a wreckage of people who are the first people who are going to step away and go, I'm not going to help you.
Right.
Look what you did to me. So
yeah.
No, you remember what you said about me in order to get to the top. So no, why would I have any need to want to help you or any inkling at all?
Well, so I've sort of seen both sides of the issue, and on one end, one thing I'm always trying to work on is my own self, and trying to make sure, okay, am I being a good colleague, worker? Then also, am I being a good boss, overseer? Those kinds of things, and I know I need to keep working on how I do that, and it cuts both ways. There are times, I think, where we think that we are managing it very well, and we think everyone is okay, or that maybe we're being so inclusive and all those kinds of things. And one way to kind of sort of find out about that is also give people an opportunity to kind of open up and talk, and because in the workplace at times there are things we're blindsided sometimes,
Truly.
And so I think it's very important to have an opportunity for people to kind of vent out and kind of learn, so that you can improve the environment.
Yes.
For sure.
I think that's right, and because people do the best work when they enjoy where they work. One of the biggest stats that I see as working with people in their careers, when I do the career coach part, when I wear that hat of my executive coaching, is most people, when they quit a job, they quit because of the boss. It's not the money. About 78% of the time when they quit, it's because of the boss. And then secondly, the stat right underneath that, or the second group, is these people will leave if they don't have a friend at work. Right? Like, most people will leave and put up with bad behavior if they have a friend at work, someone who's going through it with them, they'll stick around. But as soon as that friend leaves, and they're the only one left, last man standing, dealing with this crazy boss, they will quit. They will leave. They will get out of there.
Wow. That's an interesting stat, and I had not thought about it in that way, but that sort of makes sense. And so, something to keep in mind. So I appreciate that information there, for sure. And by the way, anybody here who might be chiming in or coming in or whatever, please, if you have any questions or anything like that, please let us know, and please chime in, any comments and whatever.
Absolutely. You know, when I was talking about this earlier, when we talk about the workplace, it can be negative, it can be verbal, assertive in certain ways, and it can also be a physically aggressive place.
Yep.
But one of the number one things that people do when there's physical aggression present in an in-civil office is throwing of staplers.
Whoa.
And number two to that is the slamming of doors aggressively when either entering or coming into a room.
Okay, wait. Throwing of a stapler. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that right there seems like something that would be just a nightmare to see, because that's a very hard object.
Yes, and fortunately they don't necessarily all the time throw it at a person, but they would get mad, and the response is to pick up that stapler and just to throw it. And you know what that communicates to the rest of the room now?
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody feels like they have to walk on eggshells. And I guarantee you, the people that are walking on eggshells are not doing their best work because they're distracted. They're now trying to figure out, how do I do my job, but on top of doing my job, how do I do it so as not to get the ire of my boss?
Oh, right.
So
right.
that's extra stress now that's on a person. So you can see where the stat that talks about the stress-related results that happen from people who are the targets of the incivility. Yeah, this is part of what will lead to these people getting these ulcers. You see people comfort eating, or they won't eat at all. They'll lose their appetite because they're just walking into an environment that's just toxic. So you just want to live small, come in, do my work, just keep your head down, smile and wave. Just smile and wave. Smile and wave, and just keep your head down and then get out of there as soon as you can. Yeah.
So what's sort of some of the solutions?
I love it. So the first thing I think would be, when you are a victim or someone who is feeling or being the target of the incivility, the first thing you want to do is you don't want to return the favor back. You don't want to retaliate, because an eye for an eye, which is extremely hard to do, because if you're both professionals, you both got your degrees, and you both are good at what you do, and it's peer-to-peer talking to you, or even if it's not peer-to-peer, you have a problem with that. So you can't retaliate, because an eye for an eye doesn't really work. Here you have to use emotional intelligence. So now, see how everything's always mental, right? So emotional intelligence just says, it's kind of like, well, the book we always talk about in the Bible, an answer when mild turns away rage.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
when somebody's being rude and they're really coming at you, number one, you can't retaliate, and number two, you have to set yourself aside, even though it's not fun, and recognize, okay, it's this person that's out of order right now.
Okay.
It's not necessarily me, so I don't have to own what they're doing. Right? Because if I do, it'll make me toxic, and then I'll want to fight back, and all we're doing is just sharing toxicity, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
So we have to deflect that stuff, get it off of us, and it's probably good to say, hey, listen, I'm going to take a 10-minute walk. Let's just take a break, and then we can always come back later. So I think in court they say, let's take a recess, right? So you literally have to do that here as a way to put the brakes on some of this. So these are a couple of things.
Okay. That's a very good point. So everybody listening here, when you have a situation where there might be a confrontation, and a lot of us don't like confrontation, but if it's something that sort of is coming off toxic, one thing to do is sort of, you don't necessarily, and it's very easy to respond right back in the same manner. And I've done that before.
We all have. We're being honest.
So is to say, hey, let's take a break. It's a heated situation, and we can come back and start somewhere else or whatever. But the tension's getting high. Nothing's going to come out of this at this moment. Let's take a break.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. So.
Absolutely. And actually, this goes back to just a simple breathing technique, right? So because what happens is, as you start to ramp up and you elevate, and when you see people's face start to flush and they start to get red, they're not breathing effectively, because their body's getting prepared for fight for flight.
That's right.
And in this case, it's fight, but it's going to be verbal fist unless it escalates even further than that, and then actually does become that physical aggression that you see, where the person is kind of doing this to make a point to intimidate you, that sort of thing. So there's this part where you do have to think about the breathing. So when you're angry or you're starting to get elevated, you're not breathing properly. So actually just stopping. So like if someone's berating you, let's say you can't take a break and you're still standing there, you just have to breathe. You have to break the eye contact a little bit, because just looking at someone in the eyes, it's almost like when you look at a dog in the eyes. They'll attack because they see that you're looking at them. Sometimes you have to break eye contact for a second. But the main thing is you got to get that breathing back. That 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Because once you have to breathe, then the blood goes back into the brain, back into the head again, and then what happens is you're able to think. Because once people get elevated, they're no longer thinking. Now they're just reacting. And
Right.
that's going to be fed by the implicit bias that's there. So if I already think Steve just kind of makes me sick anyway, because that's what his people always do. They all right. And now I'm using that to even fuel it and get me even angry.
Right.
So it's
and one thing about that also, not taking that break, and you kind of go back, you get into this fight or flight, you cross this line. And just this is probably also just a word for wise of like why not to do that. Things that may come after that can be just so destructive. And even we're not even talking about physical or anything like that, just the words that can be said. And one thing, this is a good point here, and maybe you can offer some advice on it. So what happens, you didn't do your breathing technique. You didn't stop it. And then things escalated and things were said, and then you sort of leave from the scene. How do you pick back up? How do you go and try to figure that next move? Because we're not all perfect. Sometimes we make mistakes and sometimes things happen. So what happens when you have a bad situation with your colleague and things were said or whatever, and then you got to wake up the next day and you probably had time to go home and sleep and you're like, wow, I wish I hadn't said that. Maybe I wish it hadn't gone that far or whatever. What is some advice in that situation?
Wow, and that's a great one too. So the first thing has to be, if you can detach from the discussion, you have to tell yourself, okay, I've got to set a boundary here. I've got to decide how important is this relationship, and it's usually pretty important if it's somebody that you work with, right? Especially if you see them a lot. If it's a carrier or a vendor who comes in every now and again, maybe not so much, right? But you have to say, okay, how important is this relationship? And then this relationship, which should be important, what do I need to do to help foster keeping that relationship that doesn't at the same time say that I have to feel like I'm just kissing someone else's boots the whole time, because then you won't respect that if you feel like you're just kissing someone's boots. So you just think of, okay, what's the boundary? All right, I'll interact with this person maybe 20% less than I used to, so that I can prepare myself and be ready to handle that other part of his life where he's really coming at me or she's really coming at me. So sometimes you have to set a boundary. I know only to spend a certain amount of time, because I normally, as a human being, will start to ramp up and get angry myself. So you set a boundary, and then you figure out if you need to have that conversation. Now, I'm going to say you should always have the conversation. Some people
why do you say that? Why should you have the conversation?
Because I think when there is no closure, it will lead to rumination on either side, or leads to more speculation. So the other person just goes, he didn't even care enough to come back and talk about it. Well, that just proves exactly what I thought about him. So, but if you're going to go back and have the conversation, you want to have that conversation on good terms where you can win in the conversation, which means winning in this case is that I'm reconciling, right?
Okay.
So we know Bible, we talk about the ministry of reconciliation, right? That's what we should be reconcilers, because there's going to be problems. So we can't be people who run away from problems. We have to be people who can step in, wade in. But when we wade into the problems, we can't be the problem while we wade in. So the idea then would be quite simply to say, okay, I got to give myself a boundary. If I know that if I spend more than an hour or 2 hours with Steve, it's going to make me ramp up, I'm going to limit some of that.
Guys, listen, you can spend more than 1 or 2 hours.
Right? And then if I'm talking to you, I'll make sure that I understand what types of things seem to be your sensitivities or triggers. And even though I may need to say things to that or speak to that, I'm going to maybe use different wording. I'm going to try to be more, hey, what do you think? I'm going to be more collaborative versus, you know what you do wrong? This is what you do wrong that I get upset with every time you do this. Well, instead of doing that, the best thing to do sometimes is say, hey, you know what? Here's what I've been working through. And I know you're really good at working through conflicts. You like to steam through conflicts too. What do you think is the best way to do X, Y, and Z? And so what I've done is I've made you a collaborator instead of a skeptic and somebody who's going to say, well, what does he want now?
Right.
What's this all about? So I think those are kind of the steps, the ways that you have to kind of build that bridge back, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be, we don't want to be known for the person who's hard to get along with. It's okay to be known as firm, and it's okay to be direct if it's for good things, but we don't want to be hard to get along with because of that firmness or directness.
Right. Well, one thing that's sort of difficult, I will say, in those kind of situations where you have an issue and you're coming back to reconciling and everything, I guess part of it would be like assessing whether or not, okay, is this the relationship that and obviously it's a working relationship, so more than likely professionally you have to work together. So
Yes.
so you're gonna have to go back and do that, and then sort of having a goal. What I'm hearing from you,
Yes.
through
Like you're
it.
negotiating.
Right. Oh yeah. And part of some of the things you're saying is exactly the kind of things you have to do in a negotiation when things go sour, and they can. I've experienced it many times before, from watching, being a part of it, and everything else. And then, so the goal would be reconciliation, and then also maybe putting boundaries in place. Is that what I'm understanding from what you're saying there?
Yes, because some people, I mean, to hope that other people change is a hard thing to do. I mean, it's hard enough for us to change ourselves, let alone try to change someone else. So that's a fruitless thing to try to change someone. So what you can do is you just figure out, okay, let me limit the engagements, and then when I do have these engagements, let me make sure that they're positive, they're precise, and I can get in and get out, and therefore there's little collateral damage to myself. And at the same time, maybe the other person starts to get won over a little bit by the fact that I'm staying professional about it and not being, someone who's just really waylaying on it or using it as a blame game. I would have done better work today if you wouldn't have yelled at me. That stuff that keeps things going.
Yeah. What I've seen is the sort of a lingering kind of thing where there might have been some issues in the past and maybe has not been fully reconciled, and so it sort of lingers. And so that's back to your point of why it's important to reconcile, because there's these lingering things out there, and try to get that out. So because a couple of important things, I think, respecting one another.
Oh, absolutely.
I think.
Absolutely.
Also reaching the overall organizational goals, and then having a place where people feel valued and comfortable and want to come to work and have fun and all those kinds of things.
Absolutely. Well, those people do the best kind of work. I mean, think about it. If you're not shackled to the idea that, okay, when I come into work today, let me just try to avoid Steve's office. Let me just try to see if I can get away from having any contact with him. And then I see you, and you're looking at me like, PJ, we have something to do today. We have to work on this stuff. So why are you? Come on in here. Let's talk.
Could you stop using my name
Yeah.
as an example?
Yeah, because if you know Steve, this is nothing like Steve. Truly, this is nothing like Steve at all. So I guess I need to make an invisible guy that's sitting right there. We'll call him Ted. So Ted, if my whole day is existing upon how I can avoid Ted, look at the extra energy it's taking for me to do that now.
Yeah.
And then actually it's trauma. Because if I stay that way for a long period of time, I'm traumatized by Ted. Every time someone mentions Ted's name, I can get upset. Every time I see Ted's car in the parking garage, I get upset because I know Ted's here, and Ted represents this thing. So the reconciliation is super important, because we want to be able to get past these little things that are dust ups that can become more of a huge storm. But in that case, the best way to go about it is, the humility to just say, what, maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe he got bad news today. Maybe Ted's wife heard something that was horrible. Maybe his daughter, had a bad experience in college. Something happened.
Yeah.
You just never know why Ted, not Steve, is being a little bit antagonistic that day.
Yeah. And it's a good point. Everybody, at some point or another, is going to have a bad day, right? You're going to have a point in your life from time to time where you're just missing the mark. And
I like that.
And I know I like to throw those out there because I know they're sort of biblical. And so and you're going to be a little off track. And as much as we want and try our best to not be in that situation and to be in control and not to sort of respond in such a way and bring some kind of toxicity or whatever to the workplace, it can happen to any of us. And so then it becomes extremely important to be self-aware, but also to have some humility at times and say, wait a minute, I may have overstepped here.
Mm-hmm.
I may have done this, and let's try to work on this, and and try to improve things.
Yeah.
Because one thing I realized is that this is a job, a workplace is something where we go and we utilize our God-given skills and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But our neighbors, our people around us and everything, these are important relationships. And kind of more of in a grand scheme of things, in our society right now, there's a lot of this anger and
Yes.
and very intense interactions with one another and everything. And it's something that it's a problem. It is a problem, and it's coming into the workplace. And so then we all sort of have an obligation and duty to sort of, first of all, govern ourselves. Look at ourselves in the mirror and try to understand what's making us so angry, and what is it that maybe there's some kind of shortcoming that I have, or some insecurity, or some kind of fear, and let's work on that. And when you do that, I think it helps the next person. And then don't be so quick when someone comes at you and if they're having a bad day, they're missing the mark, to be so quick to just respond immediately back at them and everything. That's very difficult for me.
I think you're right. I mean, because that's what happens as humans. That's what we do. We in a way, we kind of share our dread with people, just like we share our happiness with people. Like when we're excited, when we're ecstatic, like when you first got the job and you didn't know that the boss was this way, you were excited, you called all your friends, you went out to eat afterwards, and then after working there for a couple of months, you start to see personality quirks, and then you start to say, it's not just a personality quirk, this is a personality trait of this person. And then you start going, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah.
Then that's a different thing. So I would just say this to everyone out there paying attention and listening, and certainly feel free to comment and let us know. There's two things. I'm just going to break it down to two things that you need to manage and you need to be mindful of, to be careful, to make sure that you're that polished professional executive who does good work 95% of the time. And hopefully we can get it to 97, maybe even 99, maybe 100%. The two things are simply this. The two things that you can control and that you can manage is, first of all, how you're looking at the situation, right? So how you think. So thoughts do pop up in your head, but you get to control what happens to them. And if they're negative thoughts, you feed them. You hear me say that a lot. If they're negative thoughts, you starve them, but if they're good thoughts, you feed them. The other thing is that you're going to have to manage is your energy, right? So once your thoughts, and then the energy is your actions, your behaviors. So if your energy's off, if your energy's bad, you're going to go bless other people with that, right? Yeah. But if your energy's on, you can actually make the room raise a little bit. People can get excited, and that's what we see what happens when people worship or when they praise something. When you see guys at a football game and somebody scores a touchdown, even though you're not on the field, you jump up out of your seat as if you were the one who scared it. This sort of thing, it passes between us.
Yeah, this little light of mine, I'm going to shine, and now I'm thinking about Bible school and Bible study and stuff like that. But in the workplace, what's contagious? Two things. I think I love the energy point. Positive energy and negative energy are both sort of contagious.
That's true.
But positivity usually always wins over, love and all those kinds of things. And so that's something I think everybody should really take to heart.
Yes.
Coming to wherever your office is or wherever you work and giving your best, but showing your best.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, it causes others to do the same. And so that's something we should always try to focus on.
So let me speak to you guys now, for everyone that's watching and paying attention. If you have a concept or an idea that you'd love to see us take it through, that's what we're doing here. We got two minds coming from different perspectives, but definitely professional. And if you have these concepts or ideas you'd like to see us break down, we'd love to do that for sure. Now, also to reach us, you need to know this guy has written a wonderful book about believing and how to master that.
Thank you.
Right? And so if you don't know about that book, you need to go look up Steve on that. In that case, for that. Now he's also got an Instagram channel. We've got IGTV that's kicking in now.
Yes,
so we're doing a feed for that. So hello to all you on Instagram. And then, of course, just his website. You'll be able to see all the stuff. We're going to put the placards up at the end of this video so that you can see that. So feel free to reach out to Steve. He wants to be a resource to you. And at the same time, I want to be a resource to you as well as a professional coach. This is what I do. I study behaviors and then I try to help people flourish. And it's not just try to help people flourish. I want them to see how they flourish. And it's usually based off your strengths, and then it's going to be based off the way you think, and then how you manage your energy. So you can find me also on Facebook, on Instagram, the YouTube channel, PJ Dunn TV. Go ahead, go subscribe, hit that bell, and you will get this. So if you can't have us in your face talking to you real time, social media makes it to where you can still get these nuggets.
Yeah, and like. And so when you go there, when you go to the YouTube and you subscribe, or you see PJ on LinkedIn or whatever, please just give a thumbs up, because first of all, it's great content. PJ is the Dr. Phil of Dallas, and so we need him to keep providing this kind of content, and so please do that. And also just on the social media side, it's an extremely important, powerful platform.
Yes.
And it's also one where people are making livelihoods on it as well. Mm-hmm. And that's something we probably want to talk more about in another session. But so please catch us there. And then if you need to contact one of us, the information's there. And
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to interact with you. And please also let us know your ideas and what you want to see. PJ is extremely talented, and he can address a lot of different things. We want to pull from his expertise and bring value to you. So please do that.
Absolutely. And if you guys know, there's other people out there who need to hear what we're talking about. They're seeing, because again, mental health is a real serious thing. No matter what you do, you can't do it without understanding where you are in your mental health. So this is for everybody. So if you're thinking, oh, it's just for lawyers, or it's just for people who go see coaches, no, actually, this is everybody. Every time you see a news feed, when you see somebody going in and shooting up a school or doing something crazy, there's a mental health issue in that.
Right.
So it does us good to understand it, so that if we're the people in the school that see someone who's off mental health, from a mental health perspective, we want to get good at you guys spotting that, seeing that, right? And then we also want to be the people who want to catch these people before they go bad, because at some point they were just like us. They just wanted to try to make a living and get there. But something happened along the way that they couldn't manage on their own.
Right.
And then because they probably isolated, it turned into something that was heinous. So we're all our brother's keepers. So
that's right.
From that perspective, please share this, put this out there. Even, whether you go to the website or not, we want you to for sure. But just understand, the more people you tell about this, and the more people that can see this, we want to make mental health a serious thing.
That's the most important thing. So I appreciate that. So thank you, everybody, for joining. We really do appreciate it.
All right, guys, till next week, and we'll have a topic for you for sure. And again, if you have one for us, let us know. We'll consider it.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys.